I'm feeling a little optimistic about the future of college football. And whomst amongst us thought that we'd be saying anything like that? Colin, do you have the tweet from December 30th? So back in December, late December for that matter, we were at the Rose Bowl. I was in California, met with several people, and it really opened my eyes. I mean, like, whoa, saucer big. And I realized big changes are coming quick. So that night, I took to my iJosh, and I tweeted out right there in downtown Los Angeles, quote, I'm very confident big changes are coming to CFB. Multiple tipping points have been hit. I don't know when or how yet, but every powerful person seems aligned in their belief that something big is imminent. Well, nothing's changed there, except some of it has made itself clear at this point. You got the Big Ten and the SEC aligning themselves. Of course, we've got all kind of headlines about how coaches are fed up with the calendar in December, and then there's a lot of consternation about whether good coaches are leaving the sport, and then there's, maybe some mischaracterization of every single coach that leaves college football is leaving for the same reasons. Zoom it out. Don't get lost in the weeds. Zoom it out. The bottom line is we all want the same things around here. What do you and I want? Well, we want the college football table to be preserved with as much pageantry and tradition on that thing as we grew up enjoying. We want as many seats at that table as possible. We don't want to have the tradition and the pageantry, but we got 30 seats being taken out of the room because there's no space left for Washington State and Oregon State at the head college football table. That's inexcusable. Okay, if that ends up being the case, it is a shame, and it means that this sport has been horrifically mismanaged by some very, very dumb people. So I don't want that, and you don't want that. We would also love some coherent oversight over the sport. That's really all we're asking for. It's not that much at the end of the day, but it is a heavy lift right now because we're a little ways down a road that we need to hit the reverse button on. So what's threatening us having that? Sounds simple. We had it for a while. It sounds simple. What's threatening us? Well, of course, we've got a changing legal landscape, and you've got the NCAA not having a very clearly defined role, and they themselves don't even understand what their role is. And in some cases, they're very ineffective at executing what their role is supposed to be. It doesn't all fall in their lap, though. If you rewind 20 years, 30 years in this sport, a lot of very powerful people, university presidents included, had the opportunity to take some small to mid-sized steps in things like revenue share, player compensation, player rights, whatever, that may not have quite led to the steepness of the slippery slope on which we find ourselves now. And of course, you've got us finding out that the NCAA castle never had water in the moat. There were no alligators in the moat. As it turns out, you were always able to storm the castle. It just so happens that it took a little while for some former players to realize it and some very, very high-profile legal minds out there to figure out it's not quite as fortified as it once seemed. Get them! Charge! And so everyone's coming to attack college football right now. And that's not actual reality, but it seems that way. Okay, so that has us a little worried right now in the college football community. Those of us like me, like a vast majority of you, who we like to slice open the sport and what's at that core we think's unique. We don't think any other sport out there has that, right? And that's why Saturdays in the fall are sacred to us. And we don't want outsiders screwing it up for us. And some people who claim to be insiders aren't really insiders. They're posers. It's a Trojan horse situation. It has nothing to do with USC, for those unfamiliar. So, as Meemaw used to tell me, yeah, dumb people can screw stuff up, but smart people have to clean up dumb people's mistakes all the time. And this is no different. But I think we can clean up the mistakes. So, now not to bore you with the legalese here, because I myself do not have a law degree. Pate State has a law school, but I don't teach any of the courses, and I'd probably flame out pretty quick there. But here's the long and short of it, okay? The biggest threat to the sport right now, the biggest threat to upending college athletics, as you know it right now, is making its way through the courts. It's a class action lawsuit. It is House versus NCAA. And basically what's going on is some former athletes are looking around and saying, wait a second, if the courts are saying that some of these NCAA rules violate antitrust laws today, didn't they always violate antitrust laws? And if that's the case, aren't we due compensation because didn't we get screwed out of an opportunity in 1988 and 98 and 2008 to profit off of our name, image, and likeness? Let's sue. It's the American way. And that's making its way through the court system out there in the Ninth District Court right now. And they may very well win if it goes all the way to trial and it goes all the way to gavel meeting table. And if that were to be the case, the damages would be in the multiples of billions, and it's more than they got. And that would be a big problem. That's a big problem because at that point, I don't really think you are interested in knowing where the bailout would come from to save college athletics. That's not a road I'm even going down tonight because I think we may not get there. This is where the optimism is coming in. So the more and more I've been diving into this and the more conversations I've been having, the more optimistic I am that a settlement may be reached in that case. Now, I'm not gonna bore you with courtroom daily updates here or anything like that, but I am rooting for it. And I'm going to humbly suggest why I think you should root for it as well. Because I think it could really, really pump some life, like supercharged, highly caffeinated life into college football and into the confidence a lot of people have about the future of this sport. So just imagine, this is nowhere near done. I am just hoping right now, but it's guided hope. Imagine with me for a second, there is a settlement in a case like House versus NCAA. And imagine instead of being on the hook for several billions of dollars, you're on the hook for a small percentage of that. And the NCAA and the former Power 5 leagues, they're charged and tasked with paying that out. But part of that settlement brings with it antitrust legislation, maybe from Congress, but only if those Power 5 leagues, or whatever the modern day version of that is, enter into some sort of world where there is revenue sharing. And you've got those big fat media rights deals, okay. Well, if you want help from us, meet us halfway. You want antitrust exemption to where you can actually enforce your laws without every other one of them being found to be illegal? Well, give the players money and let them have a slice of the pie. And at that point, imagine the powers that be going, fair enough, probably long overdue, fair enough. The entire model does not have to implode. Okay, mutually assured destruction is the path we're currently on right now. And there are a lot of folks filing a lot of lawsuits and a lot of players banging the drum for players' rights and compensation, and I get this and I get that. You only get it if the sport's worth what it's worth right now. And I'm not saying that the lights get turned off overnight or anything like that, but I am saying down the road, you could cross a line in the sand that makes the sport not quite recognizable like it is right now, and it turns some people off. But even if that didn't happen, you also head down a road where you cross a Rubicon, and all of a sudden a lot of sports that exist right now don't exist. And even in the world of football, a lot of programs that exist right now don't exist. The other night, when I dealt that harsh reality that's a potential reality, some people who never watched the show and just saw the clip said, why am I supposed to be okay with that? Why am I supposed to be okay with some programs dying? You're not. You're not. What you did is you didn't listen to me when I was over in England or Belfast, wherever in the world they built Titanic. I'm standing there in the shipyard and I'm yelling at them, guys, you may want to rethink the construction here. I don't like this schematic. What if? Well, they didn't listen to me, and they built the ship the way they built it. And so I'm on her maiden voyage. Me and Leo and Kate and everyone's on the maiden voyage. And then we hit an iceberg. At that point, you don't get to go back and reconstruct the ship. You got to make the best with the current set of circumstances. So imagine someone standing there saying, guys, we're in trouble. And not all of you are going to make it. But if we pack these lifeboats as full as we can avoid, the biggest disaster in maritime history, at least in terms of loss of life. Imagine doing that, and there's this fool over here on a message board saying, that's not acceptable. Your plan includes loss of life. Hey, man, every plan at that point includes loss of life. There quite literally is no plan that doesn't include a loss of life. And so we continue to go down the road we're on right now. There is no path that involves every program making it. There isn't. There just isn't. I don't know how else to dress that up for you. I could lie to you, but I don't really have interest in doing that tonight. So I would prefer us not to continue going down that route. I am rooting for a settlement in this case. And I am rooting for part of that settlement to be some form of help from either Congress or some way absent Congress being involved for conferences to be able to enter into media rights revenue sharing models with their student athletes. With their players. because this is part 2 of what I want you to imagine tonight. As it's been presented to me, there is a world out there where we reach settlements in these court cases. There is a world out there where these power conferences enter into revenue sharing deals with their players. There's a world out there where if I'm a freshman wide receiver at Clemson or Purdue or Auburn or Arizona, I know right off the top, just because I'm a player in that conference, I'm going to get, let's say, $30,000 a year. It elevates to 55 or 60 the second year. It escalates up to 6 figures the third year, contingent on the idea that I'm at the same university in my third year. I'm not locked in. There is no piece of paper that says I have to stay at that university. But buddy, there is extremely scalable, escalating incentive to make me want to stay at the same university, because all of a sudden the conference that my school's a member of is telling me, kid, the longer you stay at Purdue, the longer you stay at Alabama, the longer you stay at Texas Tech, the more lucrative it's going to be for you. You're free to move. Okay, we're not going to tell you can't transfer, and there may still be circumstances where players need to transfer, just as there always has been. We're going to build in language for if your coach leaves, you don't suffer punitively, financially, like maybe someone who just decides to leave for the heck of it, but you're going to be incentivized to stay. And I think there's a world where that could happen. And some very smart people think there's a world where that could happen. I'm all for this, by the way, because what else it does is it takes the player, and they're always going to look out for themselves, as they should, as you would and I would as well. But also imagine, if I'm a wide receiver at West Virginia, not only am I looking out for me, but if I know my share of that revenue sharing is tied to the success of this conference, man, I'm all in for myself. I'm all in for my team. I'm all in for that conference. I'm doing everything I can to promote this team in this conference, because as they earn, so too do I. It almost sounds like the modern workplace, doesn't it? The only difference is I haven't used the E word yet, and that is employee. Can this stuff be collectively bargained without that? That's the great unknown. It's not, usually. It's not. But as you can tell, we need some creative thinking already here. Why not apply it to that portion as well? So I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on this tonight, 15 maybe, but not 20. But I have some optimism, guys, because see, in that world, in that world where there is basically a foundation, no matter where you go in the SEC or the Big Ten, and I'm not just limiting it to those two conferences, no matter where you go, if you know just by signing this piece of scholarship paper, I'm making X amount of dollars, well, then all of a sudden NIL still exists, but NIL would not nearly be the universal recruiting inducement that it is right now, because right now you're able to lure kids with $30,000 right now. I'm not trying to poo-poo the impact $30K would have in your bank account, but I'm telling you, in the grand scheme of things right now, that should not be enough to be swaying kids to the left and right, but it is, because a lot of these kids have nothing. And so if they know they're going to have something either way, well, then they're making a lot more informed decision about where I should best go apply my talents to the fit that's the best for me, instead of just who offers the most. And secondly, I am a believer that maybe, just maybe, part of that new college football world includes a lot more stringent and enforceable language on punishing wrongdoers who do continue to use NIL as a recruiting inducement. And I think you guys would be shocked at how on board vast majorities of coaches and universities would be for that. They'd sign off on it tomorrow. The great illusion is, all these coaches want to cheat. All these universities want to cheat. No, they don't. They don't. A vast majority of them complain, and would love to be able to press a magic button where tomorrow, if anyone is found to be using NIL as a recruiting inducement, they get taken out behind the woodshed for a little while. They'd love it, because number one, it would stop most of it. Number two, then they wouldn't feel pressured to do it. Now, you can take that, or you can sell it off as BS, but that's what a majority of them will tell you behind the scenes. So fingers crossed, everyone. Fingers crossed. Doesn't have to be the end of the world.